having grown up in a place where survival was an issue, where you're actually concerned with putting food on the table, making sure you've got running water. I mean, we used to have electricity cut off twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays, which means there was, I mean, the house would be, cold. There would be only cold water running in the pipes. You didn't have any lights. So we would have like neighbors come to our place. We would have a kerosene lamp installed on the table, and we would play bingo for like 3 hours until they would, get the lights back on, and we would like put like a traditional tea kettle on the stove, and till it goes like, just
Yeah.
makes the sound. Or at times like during the summertime, all of a sudden they would shut off the water, so you had to walk 2 kilometers to a pump, stand in line because it was for the whole neighborhood. It wasn't just you. It was just your apartment. It was
Yeah.
like everybody had the water shut off. So you go there, you stand in line for 2 hours. You finally get to the pump. You get the water. Obviously, you don't just get one bucket. You get like a couple of buckets. So now you have to carry like these 10-liter buckets back home for 2 kilometers, and then get it up to like the fifth floor as well. So a lot of this stuff was real, and the problems we were solving were survival problems, safety problems, things like that. Over here, you're absolutely right. There's no such thing. There's so much convenience. There's so much. The basics were taken care of, but there's also so much convenience that people take it for granted. And you're right. Now the problem is, you know what? I'm ordering Uber Eats, and I have to wait 45 minutes, and I
Exactly.
really don't feel like it. So I'll get priority delivery.
Yeah.
And then recently I've noticed there's another feature where you can, you can basically order from a restaurant of some kind. Like we get sushi from this really cool sushi place, and then actually right next to the place there's bubble tea place as well, so you can combine it. So now Uber is encouraging you, hey, also get something from these other places within like a 1 mile
Yeah.
radius or something.
You know what it's creating? It's funny. It's have you ever seen the movie Idiocracy?
Yeah.
First of all, before I say that, going back to the situation where you had to get buckets of water. At the time, I guarantee you, the last thing you were thinking about is, I better make sure my straw is paper, because otherwise the environment, and it's like, these aren't where I'm thinking, right? Like you're
Dude, I drank from the same cup my entire childhood.
exactly
Right.
like
I mean, straws. When I saw a straw for the first time, well, I don't recall
exactly.
even when. It was so exciting. Yeah. I mean, and you could like bend it and stuff. It would make this little tick 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 sound. It was so exciting. Now you can't get my kids excited about things anymore. They
No,
take
no.
everything for granted.
Yeah, and it's so true about, but that's where we're headed. We're headed to a world where, you have Apple coming out with Apple Vision, or whatever they called it, and that's going to, Apple, when Apple plays in the space, it's going to make an impact, and that's, we've had, VR and all that stuff. But now, because Apple's come into this space, it kind of creates that validation for a lot of
Yeah.
the non-techie, non-nerd type of people. And you're going to see a lot of consumers, they all obviously called it Vision Pro because it's going to be the more expensive version. Eventually, they're going to have their Vision SE or whatever it is that's going to be the more, affordable version for the masses. And now you're going to basically say, okay, I'm not going to get up. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to work from home. I'm going to put on my headset. I'm going to get my Uber Eats delivery. I'm going to basically not exercise. And really, the next thing is like, there's a comedy special on Netflix from his name, I think, is Ronnie Chang or something. And he jokes about, like, he's just like, I don't even want to order Uber Eats. I want you to come over and put it in my mouth. I want you to take the food and put it in my mouth, so I don't have to get up. I don't have to get a fork. I don't have to sit. Just put it right in my mouth. And that's basically where we're headed. It's like, yep, goggles, just sit back, work from home, not move off of my couch, not worry about what's happening in the outside world. Send me my food, put it right at the door. Actually, you know what? Come inside and put it on my plate for me. And yeah, it's nuts.
Dude, there's like a really old Soviet cartoon about a kid who was one of the lazy kids. Again, at the time when this was frowned upon to be lazy. Now it's almost celebrated. Like if you're lazy, that means you figured out a way not to do grunt work, and therefore you're smart. You know,
Yeah.
like the whole Bill Gates quotes. Like I try to hire a lazy person to do the job because they find the most efficient way to do it or something. So back, I remember this cartoon. So there's this kid, right, and he's really lazy. He doesn't want to do his homework. He doesn't want to like help out his parents. He doesn't want to like do whatever the chores. And then he finds this box, and out of this box come two guys, big guys, and they're identical. They're identical twins, and they're basically there to do everything for him. So he's like, okay, do my homework. They do the homework. Okay, do my laundry. They do his laundry. Do my whatever. He's very excited. Then he's like, all right, I'm ready to eat. So make me this, and then they make him like really tasty, you know, whatever the food was, and they eat it. He's like, hey, what are you doing? It's like, we're doing everything for you. And they eat the food, they enjoy the leisure time, right? So he can't get anything. And the premise of the cartoon is you put in the work, it means you're like earning your right to enjoy the good stuff, including the basics such as food, right? And rest. And so the message was really clear. You don't work, you don't need tasty stuff, you don't get to enjoy life really well. And that message is so indoctrinated into, you know, Eastern European society where I come from. But it seems like the message in the Western society is a little bit off, where it's like, do everything for me. We got all this technology, right, to do everything for us. You know, the cars are self-driving, the laundry machine is self-washing, the Uber Eats it's self-serving the food to us and everything. But then we don't seem to be appreciating it because we get to enjoy all the benefits. So we do none of the work, enjoy all of the benefits, and we just cultivate a toxic mindset that's just gonna like. I mean, the Western society is already on the decline. Everyone
Sure.
can see that,
Yep.
right?
You know what the issue is too is that because everything is so convenient, and because you know you have AI coming and you have Chat GPT and all the self-driving cars, and eventually with if Elon makes it happen with Neuralink and you know chips in your brain breakthroughs and stuff like that, and all the medicine and all of the kind of biotech advancements so that you can live longer as well and be healthier for longer. The problem is with the kind of standards of living in order to afford and get all of this, not only, you know, imagine really the age of retirement is no longer going to be 65. It's actually going to end up being, for most people, 85.
It's already that. I mean,
It's
most
already
people
starting
can't
to
afford
grow.
to retire.
Yeah, for sure, because the standards of living keep going up and up and up and up. But the main the main problem that we face is we're bored, right? Like what do we do?
Yeah.
So let's pull up our phones and let's scroll through Instagram and through YouTube and let's watch Netflix and like what am I supposed to do? I can't. I'm not going to drive. Like first of all, I used to actually stick shift in order to drive.
Dude, I used to love stick shift.
Well, I still love stick
But
shift.
it does. I mean, it can have its downsides because we had this really beat down Daewoo Nubira, which is based on Chevy Cruze, but like an older version.
Yeah,
And between the second and the third gear,
it would
it
jam.
was. I mean, it was broken or something because I had to use my other arm to actually push it through to the third gear. There was one time I was coming back from the airport and I got stuck in a traffic jam for like an hour. So it's like you go a little bit, you stop,
Yeah,
you go a little bit. Dude, my arm hurt so bad the next
yeah.
day.
But the point was that like you had to drive, you had to pay attention, right? And then okay, now it's automatic. Okay, so I as long as I can press on a pedal and I can press on a brake and I can turn the wheel, I'm good. Now, like I drive a Tesla, and any chance I get, I don't have full autopilot because I think it's ridiculous, and I actually enjoy driving. But truthfully, anytime I get, I put it on like the regular autopilot and just let it drive on the highway. Like I turn on autopilot and let it drive, and I
It's easy
sit
to
back.
get sucked into that, isn't
It's
it?
very easy because it's like, well, it's literally just driving me, right? And it gets to the point. That's just a very small example, but okay. Fast forward 5 years, and now full autopilot is pretty standard in most cars, and even more so in 10 years. And now, okay, nobody needs to drive. Fine. Okay, great. Our kids don't have to learn how to drive. It'll solve a bunch of problems. Traffic will be no longer a thing, and there's going to be a lot of benefits to it. But guess what I'm going to do while I'm driving? Scroll, do something, because I'm going to be bored, right? I don't need to focus. I don't need to pay attention because I'm the
I
car
mean,
is driving.
social media, Netflix, all these companies, they'll win. I mean, you'll probably be driving an Apple car, wearing Apple Vision Pro,
Exactly.
right? And doing your work and presentations and Zoom calls like this while your steering wheel is going on its own. And it's it's so counterintuitive too, because remember that movie? I used to be when I was growing up in Ukraine. We were really influenced by guys like Schwarzenegger and Jean Claude Van Damme, and
Yep.
a lot of these
Mhm.
action, Chuck Norris and stuff.
Yep.
And so there was this movie, Time Cop,
Yeah, yeah. I
where
remember Time
remember
Cop.
that.
Yep.
So in that movie, he was actually using a self-driving car. I
Yep.
think in the first couple of minutes of the movie, he jumps into the car, is like home, and the car be like, yeah, okay, cool, and just drives. And so
Yep.
watching that, we were like, oh my god, this is so cool, so amazing. But what really happens is, these Google self-driving cars that go around, or some other type of cars. There was this thing where it ran over a person, even though inside the car you have a designated person who's supposed to sit there and prevent this kind of stuff. Why did that happen? Because the person sitting inside the car did what? They just scroll through their phone.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're incapable now, by the way, of just sitting there, right? That's why a lot of people turn into meditation, things like that, because we're incapable of just being idle and letting just be here, be
Well, that's
present. Like,
that's the thing. We
yeah,
don't want to spend time with each other. People would rather text than to actually speak, and um, it's so funny. It's so funny. When we were in Uganda, so it was a group of 12 of us. Like I didn't know any of them, like other than the person I went with, and we met all of them. But then as we traveled around the country, no one wanted. Obviously, no one was on like data because we didn't want to pay massive roaming bills. And Wi-Fi was only. It was extremely spotty, first and foremost, and it was only at the lodges that we were staying in. But it wasn't even in the rooms. It was only in like the lobby restaurant area, and it was always terrible. Like it was really slow. But what was interesting was we were forced to spend time with these strangers and talk, and because we couldn't go on our phones, there was nothing to do on our phones because we didn't have internet. So we'd spend all this time with these strangers. We'd get to know them. We'd speak to them. And then the minute we would get to a lobby, every one of them, all 12 of us would, Wi-Fi. Does it work? Does it work? Yeah. Okay. So then we would sit at the table while we're having dinner. All of us would just be on our phones. Like, and I would look up and I would observe and I'd be like, it's crazy. Like 20 minutes ago, we didn't have a choice but to talk to each other. And now the minute we have the choice, it's like, let's dive into this virtual world, even though we're all sitting here together. Like we could keep talking and having conversations, but it's just the world that
No, and
we're
you're
in.
right. And you know, we do a lot of joint ventures. And part of doing joint ventures is I'm always looking for ways to get people out of their day to day to try and have a conversation with them. And so it can be very difficult, especially for guys like us. I mean, you're a founder, and I can only imagine your phone exploding all day long. You've got Slack overwhelming the crap out of you, and all the other messaging platforms. So you're probably limiting the amount of incoming messages by having gatekeepers and stuff like that. So when it comes to actually connecting with other people with who I can JV, you know, one of the best ways to do it is some sort of physical environment.
Yeah.
Like I just came back from a Vancouver mastermind where I get to hang out with quite a few people from our industry that you probably heard of. Um, and what's really interesting is that it was a 6 day long mastermind,
Wow.
with the first day just being, you know, having dinners. The second day we had like a team building thing happening. We did a trampoline dodgeball and an escape room, which I enjoyed both, by the way, very, very much. And then 4 days following, we were in a house together, all of us, and we pretty much spent the entire day and then dinner together. And there were very few people actually were consciously spending time on their phones. Like what I noticed is, you know, everyone made a conscious effort to just be present in the room, talk to each other, connect with as many people as they could, and it was a very fulfilling experience for me personally. Like anytime I go anywhere now, I try not to even enable Wi-Fi, because I know the moment I do and my phone starts exploding with notifications, just like anyone's phone, um, you're just gonna get sucked into it, because these things are, by the way, they are built to suck your attention.
Of course.
And one thing that I like to do is I like to set my phone, like when I really need to not look at it, I try to set it to grayscale. So I heard this talk by somebody from Google that if you take your phone and you turn on grayscale and accessibility options,
Hmm.
what will happen is your phone goes black and white. And because it's not so visually appealing to the eye, you naturally don't want to keep staring at it. So the moment
Ah,
you do that, your screen time goes down 30%. Absent of any other change, your screen time
interesting.
just goes down. Yeah. So I try to do that, try to turn off the internet, and um, the level that you like, the level of connection you can achieve if everyone around you just commits to a certain period of time to not be on their phone is tremendous, is absolutely like you get to know people from a different perspective. All of a sudden they don't appear as standoffish as they usually would. Some people who've got a resting bitch face all of a sudden start smiling, so you don't really think they're assholes. You know, they open up from a different direction. You know, I was just hanging out with this guy. I've known him for some time now, and we always like have good chats, but we now spend so much like present time together that he ended up like admitting that he was at one point, yeah, almost went to prison because he had like offenses with the police. And like all of a sudden I'm discovering a whole other side to his story that never came up, and
Yeah.
that doesn't happen if you're having surface level chat
Totally.
conversations with people, right?
Yeah. The interesting thing that I find is that entrepreneurs are usually the ones who embrace this technology the most, but also push this technology aside the most as well, because they're conscious enough that they understand the repercussions, and they basically, I don't know, it's interesting. Whenever I would surround myself with entrepreneurs, what you just said is always the case. Like you realize that most of them don't go on their phones because they want to network and spend time with this other and connect at a deeper level. Maybe because they're on their phones and all on in that world all the time. But then on the flip side, you hang out with people who aren't entrepreneurs, and it's almost as though they are they are sucked into it, and it's part of it. So you don't see them turning it off as much. You don't see them consciously thinking about the fact that this is happening. And this may be just a generalization, and it may not be, factually correct, but it certainly feels that at least the people I hang out with, they really try to make a conscious effort to not dive in. Like more and more, I'm finding entrepreneurs are disconnecting from social media. Like I don't have Instagram. I don't have Facebook. I don't use Facebook. I have a Facebook account, but I don't ever use it. I've unfollowed literally every single one of my contacts on Facebook so that when I log into Facebook, I've got nothing to look at. Hence, I don't ever log into Facebook. I deleted my Instagram account. The only thing I dive into once in a while for entertainment purposes is Twitter, because and like right now my Twitter feed is all about what we spoke about at the very beginning, and just like gender, social politics. And I follow both left and right because I'm curious to understand both points of view. But more and more I'm finding that I do use LinkedIn once in a while, and I post on LinkedIn, so that's true. But more and more I'm finding entrepreneurs are disconnecting themselves from these things that ultimately we've built. Like that's the funny thing, is like entrepreneurs built it, and most entrepreneurs who've built it are like, yeah, you probably shouldn't use it. Like
and you can tell by there's like in Silicon Valley, they have most people, like most founders, hire nannies, right?
yeah,
And they have a clause, like a standard clause in the agreements that they make them sign, that if they let their kids spend more than an hour a day in front of a screen or social media or whatever, they get fired on the spot.
yeah,
So the people who create the technology actually are the biggest advocates to limiting access to that technology, and that tells you a lot about the technology we're using.
exactly.